contributor to the Daily Telegraph, Daily Mail, a commentator to talk radio, has his own show on GB News, and clergyman. What else could you add to that? Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a very big UK Independence Party welcome to Calvin Robinson. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited.
I'm usually sat down, that's the problem. Thank you for that lovely introduction. It's genuinely a privilege to be here. I haven't been to Skegness in about 20 years. We used to come every year with my grandparents. And I just went to the seaside for some, to the sea for some fish and chips in the break. And looking out across the sea, it reminded me what we're fighting for. Because it's changed so much in those 20 years. I mean, it's just the big metal monstrosities, the wind turbines. It's ruined the skyline. It's ruined the beach. And for what? Virtue signalling. What do we get from that? But I'm not here to talk about wind power. I'm here to talk about the WEF, because I see the WEF as probably our greatest challenge going forward. It depends where you fall on the spectrum. I would probably say they're demonic. You might say they are globalist, but I'll address the issue at hand and let you guys make up your own mind, and I'll open the floor to questions so we can talk about whatever you like. But if you're not familiar with the WEF, the World Economic Forum, it's a NGO, so a non-government organization. Essentially, they're lobbyists. And this is famous for meeting at Davos in the ski resort. Sophie Corcoran was there last year, I believe, having a good time, holding them to account. Organized and founded by German engineer Klaus Schwab. Yes, that one. So the global elite, politicians, big business, celebrities, and big investors all meet in Davos every year as part of the WEF to essentially plan our futures for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, very kind of him, isn't it? George Soros himself spoke at Davos in 2011 about redesigning the international monetary system. Now, if anyone's been keeping an eye on cryptocurrency, you'll know that there's a push for digital currencies that are centrally controlled. The idea being, and the Bank of England are pushing for this themselves, the idea being that they'll set up a currency that we move away from cash, so it's not tangible, you can't own it, you can't hold it, you can't keep it under your mattress, but it's a currency that is on a computer system, and it's centrally controlled, as in the Bank of England set the rates, not just the inflation rates, but the value of the currency, the expiry rates of the currency. So if you don't spend your money within a certain period, it could run out. And essentially, we could get to a point where they can control what you spend your currency on. So for example, if they deem meat bad for the environment, and we should all be moving towards veganism or plant-based, as they call it these days, they could potentially prevent you from spending money on meat. Am I too tall for this?
No, it's just in your face. It's not good.
I'm sure you can see the problems with a digital currency that is centrally controlled from the get-go. But George Soros has been planning this since 2011. Bill Gates is also involved in the conversation, which should concern you. Yes. Now, Klaus Schwab himself brags about the diversity of the WEF's reach. In the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, a Russian President Vladimir Putin were both young members of the WEF. Now, I believe that Putin has since left, which might have something to do with the state of affairs happening at the moment. I'm not going to comment on that. It's quite a controversial topic. I try to stay away from controversial topics. But not only are these global leaders involved, but Schwab goes on to say, on record, that he has penetrated the cabinets of all of the Western governments in the world. So from Canada to Argentina to France and to Great Britain. In the year before COVID, a quarter of the UK cabinet went to Davos to meet at the World Economic Forum. So Theresa May, who was then the Prime Minister, Philip Hammond, who was then the Chancellor, Liam Fox, who we thought was one of us, Greg Clark, Matt Hancock, Penny Mordaunt, Jeremy Wright. There's a long list of British politicians heading out there. And you may have heard some of these politicians uttering the words, "Build Back Better." This is their slogan, this is their motto. It's all about bringing in this great reset. Now, while some of us have been worried about another reset, this bigger reset has been happening right under our noses, changing our social, political, and economic landscapes in favour of what they call the fourth industrial revolution. This is a campaign slogan parroted by Boris Johnson, US President Joe Biden, the Prince of Wales, Jacinda Ardern, who may well be the Antichrist herself, Sadiq Khan. But it's interesting, no matter their politics, they're all saying the same line, all singing from the same hymn sheet, Build Back Better. And Klaus Schwab, the founder of the WEF, released a book, or a few books, but most notably in 2016 he released one called The Fourth Industrial Revolution, where he put forward all of these proposals for the Great Reset to change our social, political, cultural and economic landscapes. Now when I say these things are happening under our noses, they publish it, they put it out there for us, and then when we talk about it, people say you're a conspiracy theorist. So there's no way to rebut it. His most recent book is titled COVID-19, The Great Reset. And again, mention the word The Great Reset online and people will shut you down as if you're a right-wing loon. But it's all out there. The point of the Great Reset is to bring the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So it's all linked together. Now, Klaus Schwab himself spoke about using the COVID pandemic as an opportunity to bring about the Great Reset, saying, "The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world." We can debate all day about whether we think the pandemic was accidental or on purpose, whether we think it started in Wuhan in a lab, or whether we think the US funded it, whatever. It doesn't really matter, but the fact of the matter is that it happened and they're using it as a catalyst to shoehorn in their politics. King Charles III spoke at Davos in 2020 when he was, of course, Prince of Wales, and he said, "As we move from rescue to recovery, we have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons to reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. We must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play." Pretty much parroting the wording of Klaus Schwab. Now, I'm not here to say that Klaus Schwab is writing the speeches that our king is given, but they're meeting together, they're talking together, using the same language and the same politics, which is very, very concerning. Some of the other conversations happening at Davos, again, for the public to see, right under our noses, include, should we be looking at installing global vaccine passports? Get this one, chips for health, pill sensors, ingestible pills, so a pill with a tiny chip that sends a wireless signal to relevant authorities when the pharmaceutical has been digested. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, who of course was at the WEF, said, "Imagine the compliance." So when we're talking about governments implementing tyrannous policies to lock us down, to control our movements, to say who we're allowed to see in our own home, to say that an Englishman's home is no longer his castle, to say that we must ingest certain medical procedures in order to live our day-to-day lives, at the same time they're having conversations about how to make us more compliant. And again, mention chips online, of course you'll be dismissed as a right-wing loon, as a conspiracy theorist, but these are literally conversations they're having about monitoring the pharmaceuticals that we're ingesting by putting chips inside our bodies. The words are out there, so Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, look that one up later. Last March, these global leaders, including, at the time, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, announced a new treaty for pandemic preparedness and response. And this would give the WHO, the World Health Organization, unprecedented control over sovereign nations. The idea being that in a time of global emergency, one world government could respond quicker to, and I quote, "keep the world safe and serve the vulnerable, so everyone everywhere can attain the highest levels of health." And I'll say that again, one world government. The idea here, whether you're looking at it from a scriptural perspective or entirely secular, is that the people in power always want more power. But they don't want it democratically. They don't want to be held to account. The fact that the WHO, which is another NGO body that we do not elect and we cannot deselect, wants to have global power over all sovereign nations in a time of a global emergency is troubling, because who classes it a global emergency? In June of this year, the WEF tweeted a promotional message saying, "Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better." I retweeted this and highlighted it as what I called neo-feudalism, and the tweet was since deleted, but they have tweeted it before that and since. And you may have heard this slogan many times, "You will own nothing and be happy." 2030 is not that far away. We've since entered a cost of lockdown crisis. Energy prices are soaring to unaffordable levels as a result of the COVID measures. There's the war in the Ukraine, etc., etc. Purse strings are being pulled left, right, and centre. And coincidentally, the United Nations set a 2030 agenda, again, 2030, this magic number, for sustainability. Their top goals being no poverty, zero hunger, good health, and well-being. The same people are involved. So Bill Gates, Emmanuel Macron, Boris Johnson, they've all been wearing this badge. You may have seen the little rainbow badge, the circle badge, the mark of Agenda 2030. To reiterate, none of this is conspiratorial. It's all out there, it's all published, it's all online, it's all in their books, it's all in their videos, it's all in the official literature on the official websites of the WEF, the UN, the WHO, the UK government. They're letting us know what's happening. The shift is moving away from the people to the global elites. There's a global agenda at play. So whether you think it's appropriate or not is up to you, but I have to ask the question, do you think they have our best interests at heart? Do you think it's right that our government cabinets are being infiltrated by an organised political entity with no public transparency? Do you think you'll be happy if you own nothing? And if you and I own nothing, who owns everything? I think the fourth industrial revolution is all about bringing about a new age of serfdom. That's what the Great Reset is. And finally, to end on a question, if we want to build back better, we have to ask the question, build back better for whom? Thank you very much. I'll open up to questions.
Calvin, thank you very much for jumping on with us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Your speech, absolutely incredible, and I think the points that you talked about are probably the most important points that are facing the UK, and not just the UK, the Western world at the moment. Is there anything, obviously your speech was incredible, is there anything that you'd like to elaborate on regarding that?
Not really elaborate on, but just to re-emphasise the importance of it's our civilization that's at stake. It's our culture, our way of life that we're fighting for here. And people don't necessarily realise it. We're hearing a lot about energy, we're hearing a lot about economics, but it's our culture, it's who we are as a people that is under threat.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I totally agree, because what I think hit home with a lot of people here is, I remember 2 years ago you mentioned Agenda 30 or anything like that, and you're a nut job, you know, at the end of the day. These things, though, you were very well researched in it, so you're getting this from books. You're not just making it up, you're actually getting the source of the information. So it is in plain sight. They do hide it in plain sight, don't they?
Well, this is the thing, you know, UKIP for having the conversation about immigration, but you've always been shut down as xenophobic or racist. Now I'm having the conversation about globalism or globalists, and instantly they shut you down as a conspiracy theorist. There's always an easy rhetorical tool to end the conversation rather than debating the points and getting to the crux of the matter.
Yeah, and I think that's right, because I think the most important thing at the moment should be conversation, debate, and being able to speak your mind. You know, you may not know, but we're banned off like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're not on any of them, you know, and we're probably the number one threat in Wales. The police are after us all the time. But that is for daring to question, you know, and I think people are scared to actually call out what's going on. What advice would you give these people who can see in plain sight what's happening, but are stay fearful to actually call it out?
If you remain fearful, we will lose. So we have to all stand up. And I've said it many times before, I think Sophie said it in her talk today, that if we all stand up, they can't chop all our heads off, and that's what we've got to live for. We've got to live for each other.
No, I really think you're absolutely correct in that as well. The more people are standing up. And do you think things are changing? Do you think more people are standing up?
I think the tide is turning. Every now and then I see a little win and I get jubilant because of it, but it's a big battle ahead of us.
It absolutely is. Calvin, absolute pleasure chatting with us today, and all the best. Enjoy your food. Are you staying for food? Yeah, brilliant. Nice one.